Hi, everybody. Hi, P the North. Hi, F1 Sanders and Raquel Batista, Esquire, and L Brown O, and Mischievous, and who just asked to Min Cho An sent a request to be in my live video. Okay. Hi, Wendy. Hi, Proud Asian Woman. I love your name. Oh, you want to be in my video? Okay. So, Min Cho An, is it because you have a question? Because I was going to talk first, but is there something that you want to say right now? Hang on. Hi, Marlon. Hey.
Oh shit,
Hi,
sorry.
Dana.
Hi.
안녕하세요.
Oh,
I'm assuming you're Korean. That name is so Korean.
I am Korean.
Oh,
I
okay.
didn't, honestly, I don't even know how to use this thing. I don't know why I requested you. I just wanted to be in it.
Okay, well, I'm about to talk about how I got my book deal. Do you want to come and join me later if you have a question?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, hi though. 감사합니다.
Thanks.
Hi everybody. Hi Lil Munachi. Oh, I got a bunch of chingo in the house. So, welcome to another seminar, and I'm going to talk today about how I got a book deal. I want to be clear that I didn't call it how to get a book deal because I think it's different for everybody. And I don't want to be the person that says, this is how everybody should get a book deal. It's obviously different for every person. Hi, Nikki. Hi, District Yoga. So I'll tell you how it started. Hi, Nikki. So I was told by a friend of mine, I think it was Adam Mansbach, who said to me years ago, oh, so if you should really write a book. And I couldn't quite wrap my head around the idea because it felt like an exercise in narcissism. So I decided, I just kind of put it off for a while. And then I worked at Universal Music Group in 2014. And I realized at that point, I was 50. I realized at that point that I took on a bunch of young women as mentees, and I realized that my experience could be instructive to them, especially as a single working mother. So I decided to write a book. So this was the first step, was conceiving of the book. Now, I didn't want to do a memoir, but I thought that it could be what I called a prescriptive memoir, right? Prescriptive in that it could be instructive, and it's a little self-help. It's a little of self-help, and it's a little bit of a memoir. So the thing that really kind of kicked me to say, oh, you know what, I think you can write this, is when Sheryl Sandberg's Lean In came out. If you're not aware of it, Lean In is a book written by Sheryl Sanders. I believe that she's the COO of Facebook, and she's white and she's wealthy. And she wrote that book, and there were definitely gems of knowledge that I took from there, but it wasn't written for me, right? It wasn't written from my perspective. It was there was a very specific perspective. And so I thought, when I first conceived of my book, that I was going to write it as a lean in for women of color. I had this job, and then I kind of let it go. I didn't really think about it that much. I had a pretty intense corporate job. I was running a department. And then I got fired. And I had 6 months left in my contract. And my boyfriend said, you know what, babe? You have 6 months. You're going to get paid out for 6 months. Why don't you go write your book? And still, I couldn't bring myself to do it. What's up, Dre? I'm going to eat some cake later. You want to join me? And so I kind of put it off. And I am a Korean immigrant. I am the child of Korean immigrants. And what that means is that I have something written, inscribed into my DNA, called the immigrant work ethic. And so even though I was going to get paid full salary for another 6 months, my compulsion was I had to work. I didn't even tell my mother when I got fired. Like that's how deep that Korean shit is in me. So I didn't. I kind of put it off, and then I took another job running a label called Cinematic, and then I worked at a marijuana company briefly, and then I ran Pro Era Records for Joey Badass. And all the time, I'm kind of formulating the idea in my head. And then finally, I said, you know what, Sophia, you're 50, you're over 50 at that point. I was probably 51 or 52. And I never wanted to turn around and say that I didn't try, because I knew at this point that I wanted to write a book. So I decided to write a book. And again, in my mind, it's a lean in for women of color. All right. So in my mind, it was chapters and it was thematic. So there was a chapter on motherhood, on entrepreneurship, on mentorship, on networking. And so it wasn't a traditional memoir, so to speak. And the first thing that you have to do is you come up with your concept, right? So I had a concept, and then I hired actually two different women, both women of color, both queer. This is really important to me when I choose my team and when I'm going to pay somebody. And they are what are called developmental editors. They are writers, but they don't write for you, right? So what these women help me do, they're so smart. They help me shape the book. So we would talk about, well, what are the chapters and what is the sequence and stuff. Hi, Mina. Hi, Beauty and Brainy and Z Dragon and Examine Baseball. So I wrote this proposal, and what goes into a proposal is typically this. There is a synopsis, right? When you're pitching film or television, there's usually a log line, and then there's a 1-paragraph synopsis, as it was for my book. And then there was a sample chapter. It is really important, if you are going to write, and I wrote my own book, that the editor can see, that the agent can see you're writing, because you get an agent before you get a deal. The agent is the person that shops the deal. I frankly actually never heard of anybody getting a book deal without having an agent. You need the go-between. And it's the same thing for artists getting record deals. I've never heard of an artist getting a record deal without a manager, mostly because artists are so crappy at being on time that they could never make the meetings. So I wrote the proposal. It was a synopsis. It was a sample chapter. And then I also put in it comps. Now a comp, I talked about this before, a comp is comparison, comparable, right? They're the comparisons. So for instance, you have it in real estate, right? Well, I would like to sell my apartment. I have a studio apartment in Nolita, and it's 600 square feet. So then you go on to Zillow or whatever, and you see what the comps are. Well, a like apartment with the size and everything, it costs about this much money. It's the same thing in television. It's the same thing in film. It's the same thing in publishing. They want to know what the comps are. What is different for me, frankly, is that there is no other fucking Sophia Chang, right? So who am I going to compare it to? And I asked this question as I was speaking to agents and editors. Who are the other, forget even female, but I said female, right? Outspoken, female Asian American voices, writers. And they couldn't come up with anybody. So they said Ali Wong, and yeah, Ali's amazing. She's also an actor and a comedian, right? So she's not a writer, although she did write a book. I meant specifically in the literary space. So there are plenty of Asian American women who write, but majority of them, frankly, write fiction. My girlfriend, Nicole Sujung, she wrote a gorgeous memoir. But nobody, what I'll say is that even all of us having trouble naming off the top of our tongue outspoken Asian American female voices, that's a problem. And it's not because they don't exist. It's because we're not put to the forefront, right? Whether that's us not putting ourselves to the forefront or whether that's us not being brought to the forefront. There's a little bit of a mix of both. So there weren't really any comps, right? Except for me to say something like, it's a lean in for women of color. And that is almost a negative comp, right? Meaning it's lean in, but it's so not lean in. So you put comps in there. So what did I say? You put a synopsis, a sample chapter, you put in comps, marketing, and your demographics. So what was marketing for me? Marketing for me was, because I have spent 30 years on and off in the music business, and I know some people in television and film, and I know a lot of artists, I said, well, these are the people that I think would support me on social media. I also said that that RZA would write my forward. I had an audiobook, so he didn't end up writing my forward, but these are the kinds of things that I put in it, right? And then I Googled agents seeking memoirs, self-help, specifically by women and women of color. You literally, it's what you do. You can just Google agents. And so there were agents that I knew through friends, and then there were agents that I knew who were my friends, and then there were agents whom I just solicited cold. So I had a leg up because I have spent so much time in media and in pop culture. And because I negotiated my ex's deal for his workout book, and I negotiated Riz's deal for the Wu-Tang Manual. So I already knew something. That is to say that so much of moving forward is about access. And a huge part of gaining access is networking, which is probably something that I'll talk about in the future. I think that networking is a really important skill, and it has certainly been central and critical to my success. So I don't remember how many agents I reached out to. The woman that I settled on, this wonderful woman named Mariah Whitney at Janklow Nesbitt, she was actually recommended to me by Ladder Fitness. You want to be in my video? Why? Are you going to ask me a question? Because I'm not ready to answer a question, but tell me why you want to be in my video. So one of the developmental editors that I had hired recommended her to me. We connected. And so I spoke to, yeah, the Wu-Tang Manual was amazing. So is the Tao of Wu. So I heard back from some agents. Some agents didn't answer at all. And again, when you reach out to people cold, you're not necessarily going to hear back from everybody, right? And you also can't care. You can't take that shit personally. You just let it roll off of your back, because these people are busy, right? And if you're afraid of rejection, then you shouldn't be doing any of the stuff that I'm talking about. Don't try to write a book. Don't try to sell a TV show, or, you can't, you have to have kind of a thick skin. So some agents hit me back and they said, look, Sophia, we think you're interesting, but it doesn't work for us. Or I think you're interesting, but I'm just not taking on clients right now, or whatever it was. So I settled, I met with a couple of different agents, and I settled on Mariah, and I'll tell you why I chose Mariah. I had other agents who wanted to represent me who were far more powerful. She is very young. I don't even know if Mariah's probably in her early 30s. That's young for a literary agent. The Village Voice, I think in 2017, named her one of the best the best up and coming literary agent, or best lit agent. So I was talking to a couple of other agents who were older, far more powerful, had much greater access, could probably, just fucking kill for the money. But I chose Mariah because she really got me. And she was so passionate about me. And she spoke to me in a way, wow, Nicole, hi, Nicole, an editor last year told me he gets almost 100 queries a day. Editor or agent, Nick? Because I'm talking about agents right now. You know what? Agents probably get that many queries a day as well. So I met with Mariah, and and it's one of two things that I look for when I'm hiring a team, okay? Not necessarily my attorney or my accountant, but certainly a manager and an agent, anybody who's going to represent me creatively, right? It's two things. Number one, that you fucking get me, that you see me, that you understand my vision, that you are not fucking scared of me, because you can't be a shook ass motherfucker and work with Sophia Chang. You can't, right? Like what you see is what you get. How you see me speak on IG is literally how I speak all the time, right? There's no fucking daylight between how I write, how I speak, and how I actually am in real life. So she checked all of those boxes. She was very passionate. She wasn't afraid, because I am fearless and subversive. Those are the two words that I keep putting out. I am fearless, I am subversive. And the other thing she did, which was so important for me, and this was a huge part of my choosing a manager, I just hired a management team in December, was that she extrapolated on my vision. She expanded my vision. So she actually said stuff to me about myself and my vision and my dreams that were larger than what I thought about for myself. Now, remember, I'm a fucking manager. right? I've done this shit for 30 fucking years. I've managed some of the greatest talent in the world. Old Dirty Bastard, God rest his soul, RZA, Jizza, Q-Tip, A Tribe Called Quest, Raphael Sadiq, D'Angelo. So this is what I do for them, right? Is that I listen to them, we talk, and then I go, well, what about this, right? And so to have somebody do that for me, I was like, yo, okay, so this is somebody who really understands my vision, believes in me, believes in my voice, and she is also going to take me into spaces and make me think of my path in a way that I hadn't thought about myself. That's part of being a creative representative, right? So I chose her as my agent, and then we worked on the proposal. And she was integrally involved in working on my proposal. She even wrote parts of my proposal, not the actual sample chapter, not the writing samples, but some of the text for it. Because the thing about agents is clearly they're in this traffic every fucking day, right? So they have a bunch of clients, and they have all the relationships at all of the publishing houses. So the other thing that you should know about publishing is there are two kinds of publishing. There is self-publishing, and then there is publishing outside of that. Self-publishing, frankly, I don't know a lot about that. I will talk about it a little bit later because I did think about it. And then there is publishing through somebody else who does your distribution for you, right? There are smaller independent houses. There are the big six, okay? And then there is Audible, who I did my memoir with. Now the big six, I don't even fucking know who they are. HarperCollins, Macmillan, Hachette, I don't know, but essentially it's what happened with the publishing industry is what happened with record companies. When I was coming up in the early 90s and the late 80s, there were 6 major labels. There are now 3. You know why? Because digital came along. None of us saw that shit coming. Napster slapped the shit out of all of us, and everything collapses, okay? So then what happened in the music business is that all of the labels started to, well, first of all, a lot of the small labels went out of business, or were consumed, right? Or were acquired by the bigger labels. And then the major labels, they merged. And the same thing happens in publishing. So if you go to a house like Hachette, or if you go to somewhere like Random House, right? There are many imprints. It's called an imprint, right? There are many imprints under that big house. Okay. And one of the things that I learned that was really interesting is that you can pitch to as many as you want. It's a little bit political, as you can imagine. But if I remember correctly, it's either a rule or it's kind of an unspoken rule that they will not compete with each other. So HarperCollins, for instance, let's say that there are 2 imprints that are interested in your book at HarperCollins. They will have an internal conversation and decide which one of them it is that is going to pursue you. So we worked on the proposal, we came up with the proposal, and what I will say is in my soliciting agents, my subject line was Raised by Wu-Tang. I was really going to call my memoir Raised by Wu-Tang. I've been telling RZA for over 10 years that I was going to write a book called Raised by Wu-Tang. And I had every intention of doing so. And so I knew that if I put Raised by Wu-Tang in the subject line, people are going to be like, oh, okay, let me pay attention to this, as opposed to, hi, I'm Sophia Chang. I don't know who the fuck I am. They don't give a fuck. Everybody fucking knows who Wu-Tang is. And it definitely grabbed people's attention, right? In the end, it was actually Mariah, my agent, who recommended calling my book The Baddest Bitch in the Room. And I'm very, very happy. And I had a whole conversation with RZA about it and explained to him, not that he cared, but so once we sent out the proposal, right, to the publishing houses, then you wait. And it's the fucking waiting game. And it's the worst part of it. And having been on the inside of a record company, okay, when somebody comes and an artist wants to sign with you, and then you say, well, you know what, we have to discuss it internally. It is very rare that you meet with somebody who has the power or even the desire to say, I want that, right? Typically, you are meeting with people mid-level, and even if they're high level, a lot of this stuff is done by committee, Okay. So when I sat in all the A&R meetings for Island Records and many of them for Def Jam and Republic Records, huge, huge labels. And we would sit around the table, 10 people, 10 A&R representatives, and talk about an artist. Nobody got to do this. I want to sign Nicole Moore and Karen Good-Marable. They have this amazing duo. Okay, Sophia, carte blanche, you get to do it. No one fucking gets that, right? So it has to be talked up the ladder. There is a totem pole. And so, and I'll do one of these about how I sold my television show as well. So what happens then is that they sit on your proposal, and like Nicole said, she just said that she knows an editor who gets 100 submissions a week. Think about, you know what 100 submissions a week is? 100 submissions a week is 50,000, 52,000. Hold up, 5,200, hold up. 5,200 a year, right? So 5,200 a year. That is a lot of reading. And look, this is what they do as a profession, but that's a lot of fucking reading. So it takes them a while to even get to it. And then once they get to it, they have to sit with it. They kind of have to synthesize and metabolize it, right? And then if they're interested, they will talk to their team about it. So there were people that were, I frankly thought that I would have a lot more people interested in my book because I have a healthy outsized ego. And there weren't, but this is what I say to anybody. It only takes one offer to make a deal, and it only takes two to get a bidding war going, right? Because that's what you want. What you really want in any situation where you are soliciting more than one party is you want a bidding war. And that's when you have all the fucking leverage, right? So if me and Nicole and Karen form a girl group, ladies, I think this is a good idea, and we decide to shop it around and we shop it to the different labels. And even if we go to the 3 labels within Sony, Columbia, Epic, and Arista, right? Then we want to get a bidding war going so that we can leverage people against each other. I'll tell you the other thing about a bidding war. And this is, to me, this is some bullshit, right? And every fucking industry does it. You suddenly become more attractive to publishing house B if publishing house A is interested. And I'll say that people are even like that, right? Men or women, you know, we find that person more attractive if we find out that somebody else finds them attractive. That I don't do. I think it's stupid, but I think it's kind of part of human nature. So I have a very dear friend. Her name is Charlotte Coe, and she's Korean American, smart as they come, brilliant. And she works at Hello Sunshine, which is Reese Witherspoon's company. Reese is a titan in the media world, right? Hi, Rose 3 Mo. Hi, Kiva Pilates. So very few people call me that. And so I told her about the book, and she went to Reese. Reese is an avid reader. She has a book club. Her book club alone, I think, has 1 million followers on Insta, and you know, Reese has whatever, fucking 18 million followers on Instagram. And so at first she just did it very organically. Oh, you know, these are the books that I'm liking, and then it turned into something different. And so my choice came down to, do I do Audible, okay, or do I do a traditional print book with a big publishing house? Now, almost everybody said to me, go with the traditional print book first. So this is the difference between an audiobook and a print book. You know what it is technically, literally, right? So literally there's a book that you read, a print book, and then there's an e-version of it, right? A Kindle version. And then the audiobook, you can hear it, but you don't actually have the text in front of you. So what typically happens is, let's say that I sign with Hachette, okay? Hachette buys my book and they publish it. This is what they get with the rights. They get the ebook rights and they get the audio rights. Those are all sewn up in that deal. All right. Now, yes, traditional publishing houses put their books out on Audible as well, but there's a window. There's usually a window there, right? So what I knew in going with Audible, so why did Sophia Chang choose to do an audiobook first? Because I had a conversation, my first conversation with Jessica Alman Galland, who was my editor and so lovely. And I had a second editor named Katie Salisbury. They were all women. The first thing she said to me was, Sophia, we at Audible want to make you a bespoke audiobook. And you know what the first thing I said to her was? I was like, I want Method Man in my book. Because what I always knew, right? I opened my memoir with a story about Method Man, who is the platonic love of my life, who was the first person to call me family, and who defended me at a studio in a way that I've never been defended before. And it was so demonstrative of love and loyalty. And I thought, I knew that's how I would open my memoir, whether in print or audio form. But when I thought about audio form, I was like, yo, I want him. And so they said, yeah, if you can get Method Man, you can do that. And so as soon as I opened the creative doors, right, to what I wanted to do, then there was no choice for me. There was no choice. And I understood the risk that I was taking, right? Because once you put a book out as an Audible original, right, which is a relatively new thing. I think Audible is only 12 years old. Typically what happens is that you write a book, and then there is an e-version of that book, a Kindle version, and it is literally word for word what you read. Of course it is, right? They're the two, one's just an electronic version. And then the audio version is, again, verbatim, word for fucking word, what you said in your book. But what I understood and what Charlotte told me was, Soph, if you do this with Hello Sunshine and Audible, when you go do your print book, you can do whatever the fuck you want. And I was like, that is a fucking gift. So what I knew was that I would not get a big print deal because none of the big six will fucking touch your audiobook, your book, your print book, once you've done an Audible original. They're like, fuck you, we're not doing that. Now, frankly, I think that is incredibly myopic, because what Charlotte told me was that they are not the same audience. They do not cannibalize each other, right? So it's not like somebody listens to audiobooks and they read books. They kind of do one or the other. And that's me. I've really gotten into audiobooks. So I sacrificed the deal at the bigger publishing house and I went with Audible. And I knew that when it came time to sell the print rights, that I was going to risk nobody being interested. Now, the reason that I think that it is so short-sighted for the publishing houses, the print houses, not to let you do it first as an audiobook, again, is because if you believe in the product, okay, and you believe in the storytelling and understand that it can develop into something else, then you should have the faith in that. And also, people aren't really fucking reading anymore, period, right? The audiobook business is growing every year. Like from 2017 to 2018, or even from 2018 to 2019, I think it was the only sector of publishing that grew, and it grew 30%. That's fucking huge in a year, 30%, right? So what they should do is, I think, hey, Vern, hi, Marvette. What they should do is they should allow you to do that first. This is also the other difference. What I knew was that in my audiobook, what did I do? I did something no one's ever fucking done before. You have the author's voice, you have guest voices, you have score, original music, licensed music, sound design. And I had DJ Scratch, the greatest turntablist in the world, scratching my music, all right? So I knew that I could create something astonishing, and I better get nominated for Grammy. If I don't get nominated for Grammy, I'm gonna pull an ODB, I'm gonna fucking bum rush the stage and snatch that bitch out of whoever they give it to. So I decided that I would go with Audible first and take the risk. But this is the difference. So my Audible book, it's what I wanted to do was I wanted to present an experience that was like listening to a movie, right? So I've managed MCs and producers and composers. So I know what the fuck that means. I know what sound design is, right? I know how to license music. I didn't do that myself. Deborah Manis Gardner did, but I know all of the world and I know what it takes, right? I knew that I could create an experience that would make everybody go, yo, why didn't we think of that? And I think that I set the bar high. I think I raised the bar for audiobooks. On the other hand, I am a maniacal photographer, and I have been for decades. The thing that I regret when I look back at all my pictures, I'm not fucking in any of them. Always the photographer, never the subject, which is why I obsessively take self-portraits now. So I knew that I could do one thing with the audiobook, and then I could do something different with the print book, right? So my print book that's coming out September 8th on Catapult, pre-order is up now. It's filled with pictures. So the things that I can't show you in my audiobook, you can see in my print book. Hi, Michelle. Everybody, that's Michelle. That's one of my closest friends. So I ended up doing 2 different deals, and I was really happy about it. So let me tell you about meeting with editors, okay? Meeting with editors, I never say no to meetings because number one, it could turn into an, thank you for pre-ordering my book. It could turn into opportunity. But number two, if you are open-minded, and if you, yes, I want to do a coffee table book. And if you are as intellectually curious as I am and as humble as I am, there's so much you can fucking learn, right? I don't do what the fuck these people do. So Nicole Sprand, who's an editor, who's reading, who's getting 100 submissions a week, he knows so much more than I do. So he could say one thing, just one fucking thing in that meeting. And it's like, yo, that's a pearl. That's knowledge for me. And this is why I'm sharing it with all of you guys, right? There are things that I simply couldn't know until I went through it. So there were meetings, and I'll tell you the other thing about meetings. And if you haven't already pitched before, this will fuck you up. And this isn't just in terms of my book. You could go to a meeting and you could pitch something. And every dick in the room could be hard, every pussy is wet, and everybody's gushing over you like, yo, oh, this is the most amazing thing ever. And Sophia, we love you, and blah, 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 blah. And yeah, we're going to get right back to you. And then what happens? Who knows? Maybe they're not that excited. Maybe they're just really good at making you feel good. Maybe they go to their bosses and their bosses aren't interested. So, and by the same token, I've been in meetings where the buyer seemed like this. And they were kind of phlegmatic, right? And then they ended up coming back and making an offer. So what you should ask your agent is, before you go into a meeting, hey, can you tell me about Michelle? What's she like? Does she tend to be effusive? Is she kind of low key? And does she, hold everything in? Because that's really helpful, because when you're in a room pitching, you're fucking selling, right? I'm fucking tap dancing, I'm juggling flaming swords and all that shit. You're doing everything, and you want to get some sort of feedback. And when you don't get a feedback, you're like, oh shit. But again, it's really good to know if that's kind of what this person's style is. So I took meetings. They were all great. Look, I think I'm the best pitcher I know. I don't think there's anybody better at it. And they were, everybody was great. And the editors all had really kind of different visions of my book, which I also thought was really interesting. But again, I learned something from everybody. And when it came down to the offers, as you know, I decided to go with Audible. And, Charlotte was a big part of that. Thank you, Taipei Matt 28. But so is Reese. I think that Reese Witherspoon is so fucking smart. I know she's so fucking smart. I've sat in a room with her for 2 hours, and Charlotte said, so she's really smart, but you're going to be surprised. And I walked out of that room. I was like, wow, she blew my mind. She was so present. She was so smart. She was so quick. She was so curious. She was not self-centered. She was so deferential. So Reese was a big part of what won me over, and I really believed in her vision. So I ended up going with her. And now I want to talk about the last piece of it, which was I'm not going to talk about writing the book or marketing it because that's different. I'm talking today about how I got my book deal. And that was the deal itself. Okay. So remember, I managed talent on and off for 30 years. I have taught myself to read contracts. I will say this again. For anybody out there who is going to do a deal, please learn how to read a contract. Look, a recording contract that's 75 pages, I don't know how to read that. I haven't done any deals that long. I think that my deals are, Michelle, how long are our EP deals? 5, 10, 5, 10, 15, 20 pages. So the reason that I want you to learn how to read a contract, and this is what I did, I did one of these seminars about negotiation, is because knowledge is power. Now, contracts are written in legalese, and that shit is tedious. It's fucking boring. It is written in a way that's hard to understand so that you have to pay a fucking attorney to do it. So I'm not saying learn how to read a contract so that you can negotiate your own deal and get rid of the lawyer. No, not at all. You have to have a lawyer. It's designed that way, right? But if you can learn how to read a contract, then you can have a conversation with your agent about it or your attorney. Right? Let's go through each of these points. Let's talk about what each of these things means. And I think it's really, really important. So there are certain terms and certain clauses that you'll see, right? Representations and warranties, indemnification, the state in which it's all going to be done. Contracts are hidden riddles and filled with landmines. Yes, they are, Marvette. But I've actually started enjoying reading contracts. And so you walk through the broad strokes with your agent, all right? Your agent walks you through the deal. So what did Mariah do for me? She said, okay, Sophia, there are certain things that are very standard, right? Like whether it's the royalty clause or whether it's this clause, there are certain things that are standard. And that's really important for you to know, okay? There are certain things that are industry standard and you simply can't change those. And I believe that. On the other side of it, there were things that I asked for in my Audible deal that my attorney said, you're never going to get. I've never seen it given before. And I said, I'm Sophia motherfucking Chang. They have never seen me before. They've never heard my voice. They have never experienced my story. So ask. There is no downside to asking. And I will say this again. The pig gets fed, the hog gets slaughtered. So I was never egregious, right? Like if I think the offer is going to be $10,000, I don't go in and be like, I want $1 million. You don't do that, right? Because then you look like an asshole and then people don't want to do deals with you. When people have come to me like that and they give me an estimate that's so flagrant, I'm like, you just don't want to fuck with me. Like I would rather that you just said, Sophia Chang, I don't want to work with you, rather than slapping me in the face with some ridiculous offer. So just ask. And I'll tell you what, I got everything that I asked for. And guess what? It means that I now have a precedent. You all know what a precedent is. Once you establish a line, you keep going back to that. You can keep going back to that line. It doesn't mean that you get it every time. But what it means is that you can say, I have a precedent. So I have a precedent of flying first class and flying first class, major carriers, nonstop, and staying in 5-star hotels. I'm not going to get that everywhere that I go. I'm not. But I have something to point to, and I can say that I have that as a precedent. So that is how I got my book deal. I hope that it's helpful to you. And again, look, part of it was definitely easier for me because of a few things. Number one, I my book involved famous people. And the truth of the matter is, everyone's a star fucker. I'll tell you that. I definitely know that. But what my book was, right? So I was the first Asian woman in hip hop. I was raised by Wu-Tang. I managed all this amazing talent. But that's not really what I wanted you to get from my book. Those people are near and dear to me. And it was really important for me to tell that story and to humanize them. But what I really wanted you to see were the people, right? So maybe you come to my book and you think I'm going to tell stories about being on tour with Wu-Tang and shit like that. First of all, I'm not a guy. I'm not getting my dick sucked. I'm not fucking smoking weed. I'm not drinking Patron in the VIP. I don't give a fuck about any of that shit, right? What I wanted to talk about was my life, my struggles. And in terms of the famous people, who they were to me. I will never talk about Wu-Tang Clan about this is his rhyme style and this is the production and RZA did this and RZA did that and these are the albums and these are the lyrics. I'm not a musicologist like that. I'm not an expert about hip hop like that. I truly am not. What I am an expert on vis-a-vis Wu-Tang is who those men are to me. So it was kind of a Trojan horse, right? So on the one hand, you think that it's going to be, maybe you think it's going to be some story about hanging out with famous people. Who gives a fuck? Somebody else should write that book. I'm not fucking writing that book. But in the end, it was really about trying to impart some life lessons to people and to show you who those extraordinary people were to me. So who wanted to join? Who wanted to join here? Ladder Fitness, do you still want to join? If you, I don't know if you're still here, but. So I'm going to take questions now. And thank you to everybody that listened to my audiobook. Hi.
How are you?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
I must say that it's a pleasure really meeting someone's a real sister.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm from the Bronx, live in Florida, and I'm starting my own business, and that's not my forte, but you know what? I got to take that dive, and I'm taking it, and listening to you brings out my inner confidence I know is there, but I don't know how to bring it out.
Okay.
How do I bring it?
First of all, can I address you by your real name? What's your real name?
Patrick.
I'm sorry, I lost you there. Patrick? Oh, you keep cutting out. I'm sorry. So I get asked that question a lot. Okay. I am aware that I have this Kevlar titanium level of confidence. And my mother told me that I've been like this since I was very young. So I think part of it is kind of written into my DNA. But I will say that how I cultivate my confidence is, number one, I don't listen to the dominant culture. I can't, right? I'm going to be 55 in less than 2 weeks. I'm Asian. I'm kind of scrawny, right? I'm hardly what people think of when they think of, let me think of somebody that's powerful and beautiful and sexy. But I also don't care, right? I know that I am not conventionally beautiful or sexy. That doesn't bother me. So one thing that I do is I mute the messages that I get from the dominant culture. I also am I have very, very good friends who are brilliant, who support me and love me and teach me in a way that makes me know that I am getting smarter and stronger. So that's the advice that I would give you, is to surround yourself with the right people.
Absolutely. But again, on that point, where do you get the fact of not everybody's a salesperson, regardless of your connections or regardless of the community you surround yourself with?
Not everybody's what? I'm sorry?
Not everybody that probably confident inside, but the fact of the matter, because you know your industry, whatever it is you're doing, you know your stuff. But to get it across to somebody without them looking at it from a number standpoint or from a standpoint of, well, this is your profession in the fitness business, but how do I bring that to them on a business stage?
I'm not sure that I understand that question, but what I would, because I thought the question was about cultivating confidence.
Exactly. But I'm confident in what to do, but not in how to get, because now I'm in a business venture and I not only have to deal with the fitness end of it, but I also now have to deal with the business end of it.
Right. Well, if you're trying to, right. So you're saying that you don't have the confidence to present it?
Exactly.
Then I would look at comps. Like I said before, I would look at who's comparable, who's your competition, what are other people doing? Go on Instagram, go on YouTube, do your research, and who else is doing what you're doing, and how do you set yourself apart?
Right.
All right. I'm going to go because I have a lot of other questions to ask.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thanks for stopping by. Bye.
All right. Bye.
All right. So were there other questions? I just had an Asian American author on my show, rejected by 38 publishers, was about to give up. Finally, a smaller publisher took him on. Now he's a top-selling baseball book on Amazon. Good for him. Who else wanted to join me live here? Dorian? You guys, can you please ask me questions about the topic? I don't want to cut you off, but if you veer off topic, I will do that because I'm speaking about something really specific.
Oh, hey, what's up, man?
Hi, Dorian Wise.
Because I love your what do you call it, veracity.
Thank you.
Very passionate and believe in what you do, and yeah. You're kind of like one of those people that when I'm going through my scrolling, you do your little 1 minute thing, like you do your little thing every day, and I hear what you're saying. You know what I mean? Like I'm like, okay, yeah, I hear what she's saying. Okay, you know, and it connects with me on a certain level. I don't really have no question. I was just surprised to get through to you because you're such a cool person, and
thank you.
You know, you're dope. You're dope. You're super dope. You know what I'm saying? So
thank you.
Inspire me, you know what I mean? But I'm not here to do all that. I'm just, you know what I mean? Like, how's your quarantining going? You good?
It's all good, thank you. It's all good. I appreciate it, Dorian. I've got to move on to I've got to move on to questions about the topic. But thank you for stopping through. You're welcome anytime.
All right.
Be safe. Okay. Is Hello Sunshine the producer of the Audible book as well? Morgan, yes. It's Hello Sunshine in conjunction with Audible. So Reese Witherspoon is Hello Sunshine is her company. And the first time that Audible did a deal outside of themselves was with Hello Sunshine. They did the 3-book deal. I was the first author signed and I was the first book out. All right, so Andrea asks, where did you begin your search to find an agent? I answer that question. My second question, timeline finding an agent to getting your book published. My timeline was remarkably fast. Is this possible? Yo, hold up. How did this go? I signed with my agent, I think at the top of 2018, worked on the proposal, shopped the deal, signed the deal, and I had a book out, audio book out by September the next year. A lot of how soon your book will come out depends on how quickly you write. I am an incredibly fast writer. My agent told me, she said, Sophia, I've never seen anybody write as fast as you. You write faster than your readers can keep up with. That's something that I'm really happy about because I'm super disciplined. You know, I exercise 6 times a week. I can be super disciplined and super focused. So a lot of it depends on how long it takes, but it can take, you know, it can take 18 months to 2 years, especially if it's a print book. Think about an Audible book. An audio book, right, is digital. You just push a button, you record that shit and you push a button and it's out there. A print book is completely different. You have to literally print that shit and it takes a lot longer and you have to distribute it, right? A print book, the distribution system, those things are getting on a fucking truck and they're going to the different outlets. That's not the deal with Audible, right? That's not the deal with an audiobook. An audiobook, it's like you just push a button and there it is. And the distribution system is built into the platform. That was another reason that I chose to go with Audible. My final question is about getting the best deal. How do you know what deal to take and which to turn down? What helped you make your decision? I talked about what helped me make my decision. In terms of what deal to accept, I'll say this for a book deal and any other deal. Again, find out what the comps are. Talk to friends, do your research. You know, Google is a hell of a tool. Find out, ask people what other people got for a book similar to yours, right? Again, nobody's got my story, but I was a first-time author. You know, it's a memoir, right? So what do people get, first-time writers get from memoirs? And you can find that stuff out. So, are there any other questions? Let me see. How long did it take me to record the audiobook? That's a good question. This I did very fast as well. I recorded my audiobook in 20 hours. I had to go back and do a couple of changes, but it took me 20 hours. I'll tell you what took a lot of time was chasing all the fucking rappers to be in it. That took, you know, I had 25 guest voices. That was a huge task. I took planes, trains, automobiles, buses, and chased everybody down. That's what really took the majority of the time. How do book royalties compare to record royalties? Are they structured similarly to music deals? I don't think so. Because the big thing in a record deal is recoupment, right? So to recoup means what the label has to earn back. So let's say that I get a record deal and it's $100,000, okay? Here, Sophia, here's $100,000. That's what we call an all-in deal, right? So that is, you take that $100,000, you can do whatever you want with it, but you need to bring us back an album. So maybe I can make an album for $2,000 because I'm that fucking savvy, and I keep $98,000 for myself. Whatever it is, they spend that $100,000. They make that $100,000 back before I earn $1, okay? Not only that, but the money that they spend on the marketing and the promotion, that is also recoupable. This is different in publishing deals. So the money, you know, the money that an artist gets spent on an artist, whether it's radio promo, video promo, going, you know, doing touring and stuff like that, right? All of that is considered recoupable, and all of that goes against your balance. It's not the same with publishing. Can you talk about how your ability to do production played a direct role in the creative process of your book regarding choosing music and timing? You know, I've been in studios since 1987 for 33 years. I've been around musicians and artists and MCs for that long. I know what that process is. So I'm really used to sound and music, and I'm used to, you know, I've watched, to me, some of the greatest producers of all time put things together. Being in the studio when RZA is in the studio, being in the studio when Organized Noise Productions are in the studio, being in the studio when Raphael Saadiq is in the studio, being in the studio when D'Angelo is in the studio, right? So to me, these are some of the greatest songwriters, or Paul Simon, and producers of all time. And so it's not that I was trying to learn how to do what they did, but I understood all of the elements, because there are a myriad elements that come together to make a record. That, I think, is what really helped me with my Audible book. Also, I am a producer by nature. So my closest friend, Michelle C, is on here. All right. We're doing a salon on Saturday. She's the best development person I know, her and Michelle Ramo. We're doing a salon on Saturday about how to develop an idea for TV and film. We're producers by nature. What does that mean? It means that when she has a birthday party for her son, she produces the fuck out of that party, right? I have a birthday coming up, and I literally, for every event that I have, whether it's a dinner party, whether it's my birthday, I have a spreadsheet. Everything is super organized for me. So I am very left and right side of my brain. And I handle everything in terms of a production. I'm very structured, I'm very organized, I'm very disciplined. And so I marry that with my creativity. So all of that stuff was really helpful. In terms of the music that I was choosing, you know, I had 30 songs I wanted to clear, but I knew I didn't have the money. So I could only clear 2 songs, right? I had part of The Message and I had part of All I Need, one of the greatest love songs of all time, right? Because that shit's expensive. And plus a lot of the publishing and the, you know, the masters rights holders, they were like, we don't really know what to charge you because nobody's ever done this before. So that's how it helped, was being around creative people. Morgan asked, how much marketing of the book did you have to do on your own versus how much the publisher helped you? Audible. So I can't talk about my print book yet because it's not until September and we haven't actually gone into the cycle. But in terms of Audible, they were, I mean, I met with my Audible marketing. I lost count between all the different departments at Audible, right? Production, marketing, PR, social, assets. I easily had 30 people on my team, easily. We did weekly calls. They were always right there for me. Doug Polson and Deanna Paquette, you know, their art department, their creative department, they were so communicative. And Audible, I will say, also spent money. And I really appreciated that because there are certain things that cost money, like my audiobook party that I had last September. It is literally, I think, the best industry party I've ever gone to in my life. I've been producing parties since 1987. I produced the Low End Theory party for Tribe Called Quest. I've been to the biggest parties, the biggest premieres, galas, all that shit. There was no party better than mine. And that was Audible's vision. They hired a company called Civic in New York, and they put together this amazing event. So they helped a lot. I'll tell you where I was most instrumental, right? Was in the PR. Again, because I've been in media for so long, I have so many connections. The people I know in publishing and at the different websites and platforms, that list is incredibly, incredibly long. So I was, that's where I was the most instrumental. What I will say that everybody told me is that you will do all your own marketing and all of your own PR. That wasn't necessarily true at Audible, but for sure, because my relationships in PR are so deep, that definitely was on me. And also getting all the artists that I did in my book, nobody else could do that but me. You know, there's no fucking way that anybody else is going to be able to go to Method Man's hotel room in fucking Norfolk, Virginia at 1 o'clock in the morning and sit there when he's dead tired and is only going to get 3 hours sleep and get him recorded. Only I can do that. Only Sophia Chang can do that. Why? Because he loves me to death. And same with Redman, right? They're not going to let just anybody like be on their bus, be in their room. It's because we have this history that they would do it for me. They're like, Sophie, what do you need? What do you need? Okay, I'm tired as hell, but okay, let's just knock it out, right? So that's the other place that nobody else could have done what I did. I went and I got Michael Mann in his office. No fucking way would he have let somebody else come in there. I got John Woo, the greatest director of all time, him and Michael Mann, in my audiobook. And that's because of my relationships. So my relationships in this and everything else I do were incredibly, incredibly helpful. All right, we have 2 minutes left. Hi, the old daughter. I'm your role model. Thank you. Hi, Dee. Hi, Dee. That Damasa was, yes, my party was amazing. What was the process of recording it? I did go to the studio. Audible has a specific, they have a specific recording studio, and it's really good. And Kat Lambrix, who runs the studio, is amazing. Raquel, was it all divine timing that you released your audiobook with the Wu-Tang docs? Yeah, kind of, but I also knew that the 25th anniversary was coming up and that there would be a lot of activity around that. And, you know, Riza and I are talking all the time. And so he knew what I was doing and I knew what he was doing. And there were lots of conversations around that. We have 1 minute left. How can we help you get your Grammy? That's a really good question. I don't know. Somebody has to nominate me. Big Tara, how do you confidently negotiate your precedents when you feel like you're faking it? There is no such thing as faking a precedent. You either have precedent or you don't. You either got paid 10 grand last time or you didn't. I would never lie about a precedent. That I would never fucking do. All right, you guys, we have 20 seconds until it's 7 o'clock, at which time I'm going to open my window and clap for all of the people on the front lines and the healthcare workers. So thank you for joining me. I'm sorry if I didn't get to everybody's questions. And on Saturday at 6 o'clock Eastern time, come and visit me and Michelle C. and Michelle Ramo talking about how to develop for television and film. Adios, everybody. Thank you.